Good morning and welcome back to Painting Big with me, your host, Ann Disembodied Hands, Queenie Disembodied Beard, John, and all of you. Oh, sorry for the late start. My knee being out has angered everything else, and my hip locked up this morning, so I had to do a stretch before I got on stage. If I'm going to sit here for an hour and a half, because it hurts. So yeah, it's about that. The knee is just the bane of my existence, guys. Hello, everybody. I've seen a lot of people. Great Weirdling. Haven't seen you. And there was somebody else. There was Lucido, I think. I hadn't seen for a while, or hadn't seen. And Turgeon with the 41-month subs sneaking in. And the Quindy with the 58-month sub. Yeah, sneaking those in at the beginning when I'm not watching. When you think I'm not watching. Hi, everybody. It's going to take a while, Michael. It's going to take a while. Considering it is now, thanks to CrossFit on Thursday, it is now worse than it has ever been, and it's been 3 months. So it's going to take, I think, at least another, 3 to 6 months to be 100%. That's my guess. That's my guess. It'll be a while, guys. I don't have knee stretches yet. I need, my hip stretch for sure I could. Except the problem, Turgeon, is that the stretch isn't one I can just do in a few seconds. It's one where I have to lie down in a particular position with my legs to, relax the hip muscle. And I have to lie there for, ideally 3 to 5 minutes minimum. I do this typically at night where I can do it for 10 minutes on each side. So, yeah, it is what it is. So I'm gonna tough it out unless it gets real bad, and then I'll take a 2-minute break to try to make it unangry. Every night to help you fall asleep. Yikes. That is an odd movie to fall asleep to, but you are Quindy, so I get it. I would have to fall asleep to an entirely different movie. Although actually it would. My favorite fall asleep. I just did music. I used to listen to Enya a lot to fall asleep. Now I just like white noise. I've graduated beyond all intelligible input. Yeah, I suggested that David look that one up, but he wasn't interested. He's stuck on another legal drama or something right now. The problem is that if he watches something like that, he likes legal dramas and medical dramas because it's all dialogue. He doesn't have to watch the screen, so he can paint. Alright, well, let's finish up Batty's little base, which is we need to stick some grass on him. Very, very uneventful. I have 5-minute audio segment on color theory while I stretch. That's a thought. That is a thought. There we go, Batty. Alright, Batty. Where is my basing stuff? It's all over here. I did put it close to hand, at least, before I came on screen. So what I want to do... So, I don't want to necessarily break green grass, because we want to suggest autumn. We can do a mixture. I do a lot of mixtures. The other thing that I do is do, a darker green, and then dry brush. I like to use this dark green stuff, actually. Let's use some of this. I could also use tufts. I have tufts of all different colors, and there is one, the swamp tuft, that I like to use as a base for sometimes for darker stuff. But the point of using a darker static grass tuft is that you can then dry brush it with all sorts of different colors. And you can actually kind of make it look however you want. But rather than use tufts, let's use actual static grass today. What do I have in here? I have all this stuff in here. Stuff. So much stuff. Grass tufts and static grass and field grass. Oh my. Alright, so we've got this stuff, but I'm going to steal the top off of my gravel mixture, because I like to use basing materials within a contained environment, because of course they get everywhere. So I'll just steal from our gravel and grass top. I'll just use this as my platform for sprinkling static grass. Yeah, it's kind of like going to be that kind of a Monday, Tristoma. I didn't sleep well, so I'm going to grab a bunch of the static grass, blook, drop it in there. It's a mixture of fibers. It's hard to see, but there you go. You can see there's some lighter fibers in there as well as the dark green ones. There we go, now we can see it. So I really like this grass color. I don't remember what color it is, but it's the dark green one. Like, the static grass colors are pretty standardized at this point. It's static grass because static electricity helps it rise up, helps it stay up, turgid, especially if you're using white glue to apply it, but I don't. I use super glue, so actually I'm not using static at all for it. I'm just using my breath to blow across it and get it to stand up in the glue before the glue sets. But yes, if you use white glue, hypothetically I believe that's why it's called static grass, is that it does carry a small charge, it's tiny little fibers, and thus you can get it to stand up. Alright, so let's get... I'm using old super glue for this, and I will not use gel for this. You want a more fluid super glue because you want the grass to settle down into it. So a gel just won't work with this technique. If you're going to use gel, apply tufts. The pre-made tufts. So let's get some grass in here, and I'm going to see if my glue is still workable here. Sometimes this long snozzle, clogs. So I'm going to stick a pokey tool in it. Let's see if that helps. I do like the long applicators that Zap-A-Gap comes with, but you know, there are a lot of super glues with micro applicators, sometimes worked into the bottle, integral, sometimes external. This is an external one. You do need to kind of watch it as it gets closer to the end, because it will splurk out on you if you keep too much pressure up. This is starting to get a very goopy, it's old super glue, so it's starting to get pretty gloopy, so it's not the best, but once you've got a little spot, sprinkle your static grass liberally over the spot and then tap it. You want it to settle down into that glue. You want to give it a couple of good seconds to settle down into that glue. Since the glue is thicker here, tapping it for a little bit longer. And as I tap it, it's falling back down, of course, and then finally I'll turn it upside down and tap it. And then underneath it, from underneath, I'm going to blow up at it, and then I'm going to blow from each direction, which is going to make it, and I'm going to use my fingernail if I need to adjust it a little bit more, if it's like going down a little bit on the front. But then we have a tuft of static grass that is, it'll be more evident once I drop it, but it is standing up for the majority of it. So static grass is great because it gives you a realistic grass cover. I'm going to put a little plop of it over. If I put it here, it's going to kind of, the mushrooms will be kind of behind it, but that's okay. I don't want to hide the big mushroom though, so I'm going to start out a little bit. Oh yeah, this glue is about ready to toss. When it gets so sticky, it's quite ineffectual for anything other than basing materials, but still works fine for basing materials, so. Do tap 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 tap. And I kind of turn it so that it taps in different directions and settles in different directions. Then upside down. Then from underneath, blow it. And then across. Then we've got little tiny bits of grass. Yeah, see, I don't like to do that, Laura, because I find that it flattens the grass out and makes it more spiky. I want to get the individual strands if I'm going to dry brush it. But if it works for you, then do it. I mean, there are all sorts of ways to apply this. As long as you still get that stand-up quality and it still looks like grass for you, then great. I haven't had much luck mixing glues in with it, though. For me. Then again, I don't use white glue really anymore. I'm impatient. I'm always using super glue for basing stuff these days. I'm going to put a big tuft that goes all the way back in there. Now, once you've got this down, you can also use a pokey tool to spread it out more if you want to. If you want to spread it. I don't want to spread it too much. It's very goopy, so it's not very spreadable right now. If it was a fresher bottle of super glue, it would be far more spreadable. Tap, 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 tap. I want to tap most of the grass off. Breakfast? It's almost lunch, Twisted Oma. You're brunching. So I'm going to tap it off. Now, if I find that I get a very thin layer of grass and I would like it to be more of a clump, the way I do that is to wait until it is set and then to put another glob of glue and to build up the grass on top. And you could do several layers to build up a big tuft of it, a tussock, or whatever you want to call it, whatever the technical term for a tuft of grass is. Do a little dab there, and a bigger dab there. Do 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 do. Tap 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 tap. Yeah, whatever works for you, Laura. It all depends on the look you like. As with all miniature painting, there is no one answer. The best you can do, and that's why it pays to learn from different artists, because everybody's got preferences, right? And sometimes they won't match your preferences, sometimes they will. And sometimes you'll learn a new way to do stuff if you do that. Uh-oh, I got static grass all over my blue tack. Look at it. It's like, hello, blue tack, we like you. I had to pull it out with my pokey tool. I don't need static grass in my green stuff. Or, sorry, in my basing putty. I'll have to brush the rest of it off once I have the model removed. Okay. Yay. That one actually looks really good. I like that. All right. So I want a little bit more here. My glue spread out a bit, I think, and the grass just didn't quite get there. So we'll keep the dark green at the roots. We'll do a bit of a tan and a cream dry brush on top of this. So a big glob of glue on top of the existing grass. Now we're gonna tap, 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 tap again. Yep, for sure, Val. Yeah, everybody's going to do it different. And every instructor has something to offer. And not every instructor will resonate with you. That's why I told you should seek out some coaching if you continue to have difficulties, because, another different viewpoint would be good. But, I mean, watching different people's videos is just as good and costs less, so... Alright, so that made my grass toughed up a lot more. Getting that extra grass and glue on there. It's a lot taller, right? And also thicker. So if I wanted that, if I had room for that elsewhere, I could do it elsewhere. I don't want to really hide the mushrooms here. I'm already hiding kind of a mushroom. In fact, I think I would take while the glue is still kind of a little wet, you can shift it. So if you notice that's crept up on a feature that you don't want to hide that much, if you still want to see that little mushroom there, we can pull it away just a little bit with our pokey tool or the tip of a knife. I recommend using something that's steel to pull it away, because you can always, if you use your pokey tool, you can always clean it off of the pokey tool. There we go. So now I can see that little mushroom if I look for it. Alrighty, let's do our dry brush. And let's get this put back in the bag. It shouldn't remind you, or it shouldn't surprise you then that Jess Rich is, you know, a watercolor artist now. Given that, you know, was very good at using MSP, which is a very translucent paint. Now she's gone transparent. Or they have gone transparent. She must have worked it really thin for her base coats then. I'm still a two coats usually does it for me. But again, on a wet palette, yeah, because you're constantly adding more water into the paint if you're using a wet palette. So I can see that it would take 3 to 4 at that point. Part of why I work in a well. All right. I'm going to use, not chestnut gold, it's a little bit bright for what I want. I think I'm going to use leather brown, and then I'll usually pick an off-white, often creamy ivory, sometimes Syrian sand. But I want to highlight this grass with more of a dead grass color, more of like that, because, you know, real grass, it tends to die out, but sometimes they're still a little bit green if you dig down, so in the winter. So I'm going to do that kind of effect. I'm going to dry brush with a lighter brown color to make this more like fall grass. Verily, it's you. Alrighty, so we just get a little bit of the, since I'm dry brushing I don't need a lot, so I'm just going to put a little dab of that in here. And MSP with dry brushing, I'll usually grab a card, often a used card. So I'll just grab this card here that we were using the Halfling Dog Rider for, and I'll just use that, or sometimes I'll use, if I have extra sheets of this gray paper that are, you know, more worn, I'll keep them aside for building up dry brushing. I'm going to use my mixing brush because it's pretty flat at this point. If I have a true flat, I actually prefer flats for dry brushing, but this is all right. It's more blunted. And since MSP is so fluid, you want to use it straight out of the bottle for dry brushing, and you want to keep in mind that's not going to be completely opaque. I just go until I can see the texture, and then I'm going to just start. And I actually don't remove as much paint as some people do. And the reason for that is that I don't want to wreck my brush, given this is a mixing brush, so it doesn't matter. But I don't see the point with static grass. You really don't need to remove a lot of stuff, because you want the paint to go onto the grass, and the grass is very flimsy and not very stiff. So using a little bit more paint, not a lot, but a little bit more paint than you might normally do for dry brushing. So this is making it more brown. See, we're not losing entirely the green, but we're putting it down. And the other thing this does to static grass is shiny, and grass, you know, is kind of, but not really to this level. So doing the dry brush over the top also kills the shininess and makes it look more real. Or in this case, you want it to look kind of like crispy autumn grass. Kind of autumn grass that had a little bit of frost on it this morning, that kind of thing. So I'm just going to keep going. And then it'll look better once I get a lighter color on there, but I wanted to put some brown on for the base. And sometimes grasses will come off and stick to your brush, and then try to just stick them down on here. All right, let's get some of this creamy ivory mixed in. Yeah, that's way, way thin. Being my impatient self, I could never do it that thin. Let's see. I just want you guys to be able to see it a good. This is a good level. All right. So we're gonna grab some of this white. Make kind of an intermediate shade here. And we'll brush a little bit of that. As we work lighter, the strands are gonna start to show up there. You see there? I'm just going to do a real light coating of this, and then I'm going to go straight up to the creamy ivory, like full-on creamy ivory. Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier, was that because the grass is so soft and it gives, it's not stiff enough. Although, once you super glue it, it gets pretty stiff. But if you try to press too hard on it, you're going to flatten it down or mat it together. And I want to be able to see the strands. So you can see how, as I'm adding the paint, you can see the individual strands of grass now. Just a little bit more, I think. It's like crunchy grass. Crunchy grass, but I want a little bit more crunchy. So we'll go up to just a pure. And at this point, the grass is stiff enough that I can use quite a bit of paint on it. I'm just going to get the tops just a little bit. Don't want to cover the entirety of the surface with all the same colors. Like, I usually leave a little bit. By the time I'm down to my final highlight, I make it very as small as I can. I just try to pick out a little bit with it. So that I can still keep a little bit of color. And there we go. Very simple. Oh, we were going to put a gloss around the edge of this plinth after the base. That's right. All right, we can do that. But yeah, like that's absolute, like, opposite of the way some people work MSP, where they work a lot thicker, the way that Jess would work it. But yeah, it's all, everybody's so different. Like, all the painters, the way we work is so different. I was telling David about green horse syndrome yesterday. Green horse syndrome is the thing that happens with my painting, because I paint so slow and I tend to like start with a very, almost an unrelated base coat and then work it up. So you really can't tell at the start of my piece how it's going to turn out at the end. Whereas David, because he blocks in all of his light right up front, you can see exactly how the piece is going to turn out, and all he does then is refine it. So we work totally opposite. But green horse syndrome comes from when I was... I think I might have been still in college, I don't remember. But I was at the local game store, and we were all painting Warhammer. It was when I first started getting more serious about mini painting. And I was painting my Wood Elf Glade Riders, which are cavalry, and I was painting the horses green, because I wanted to underpaint them green, you know, to kind of lend that tone, because it was Wood Elves. But nobody else at the table, none of them were art people, and none of them understood, like, what I was trying to do at all, until they were finally done, and then they were like, oh. But it was dubbed green horse syndrome, because essentially it's the part of my painting where, when I start, sometimes you can't see where I'm going with it. Like, you can't really see how it's going to end up. Because I tend to do a lot of underpainting. And then everything changes. All right, so I threw some water and mixed this paint all together, because I don't want it to dry in the palette. Just thin it way down. It'll be a lot easier to clean out at the end of the stream. Oh, for those who missed the weekend stream, Lava Dragon has blue eyes now, because they show up better. And he's starting to come together a lot better. He's a very handsome lava dragon. Alright, any gloss sealer? Have to show you, Kariniko, because, you know, did you see that or did you miss it? So I know Kuro has to see the dragons. I didn't get to 3D printing this weekend, but I really have to do it this week because the temperature is going to drop and that's going to make everything, like, change. Okay, you got to see him. He's a handsome fellow. He's a very handsome fellow. So very handsome. I would have a tiny version of him, like, riding on my shoulder. Like, that would be cool. He could keep me warm in the winter. So I'm going to use Reaper's Gloss Sealer. It's a very lightweight gloss sealer. It's not super, super shiny unless you build up multiple coats. But it'll be enough to give it a slight sheen to the base, and that's what I want. You can thin it a little if you want it to level better. I'd almost say you should, but it's up to you. If you're trying to put on a thick coat, then you probably want to keep it full strength and just use extra. And singe people that annoy you, yes. Thanks, Turgeon. But I always thought green horse syndrome was kind of funny because it totally is true, though. Sometimes when I'm starting a model, I have an image in my head of where it's going to end up, but when you first look at it, you have no idea. Like, you're just anybody looking at it would be like, huh? So we're going to get this gloss and we're going to gently put it all around the black part. And this is going to help protect that rim as well from rub off, since when you paint a base, it is more prone usually to rub off, right? Obviously, since if you just use the plastic, that's why I keep so many of my bases just like black plastic, because it's the easiest, most durable way to get that finished look. I have, in fact, broken models off bases so that I can put them on a fresh base if the original base gets dinged up. So I'm just trying to go slow, always working on a wet edge, except up here I'm going to have to go over real quick. I might get a little bit of a lip there. Should have done it on the side. So I should have started this on the side because the side isn't really a viewing point, isn't as much of a viewing point with this model. So if I was going to have a fault in my gloss coat, having it on the side would be better. But I think I got to it in time. As long as you manage to paint it and hook it up together while it's still wet so it can self-level. Got a little bit of puddling. I can rinse off my brush and just pull that down a little bit. Pull it off a little bit where I see it so it'll help to self-level. Some of it's going to try to dry that way. We can let's see. And the other thing that, because some of it's going to start drying patchy, depending on where it's more pooling or not. So I'm going to let that go because I added water, so there shouldn't be some paints, as you know, if you apply them very thick and they puddle, you can get a crackling effect. And I've had that happen with Chimera, actually. So that's part of why I always add water to paint, is that water stretches it out a little more and gives it more room to dry. Even if it's drying patchy like this, it'll give it more room to dry without crackling. As long as the finish is good at the end, we're okay. Got a little bit of static grass in that, but that's fine. So that's the finish sheen then. I'm going to let that set for a second. I don't want to really tilt it on its back because I don't want the paint to flow and pool more in any given direction. I want it to stay pretty even, so I'm moving it around a bit. Ah, wyverns, Wyverns are cool. Alright. And that's slowly drying. Been a little lower humidity here lately, so hopefully this will dry pretty quick. But we can set him over here, and let's time probably to think about what we want to do with Sophie today. And I think just looking and trying to figure out like some parts that might be holding me up. Haven't done the silver. Still have a little bit of gold stuff to do. But I think I'm going to do the reddish leather here next. I think that's where I want to be. And I can do the ties up here the same color. I think that's what I want to do. Get that red leather done. And at some point I have to really commit to what I'm doing for freehand. Maybe we'll map in freehand first. Let's map in freehand first in white. I've just got a loose idea for what I want to do with it. So we'll just freehand it. Like literally freehand it. Like I'm not sure. I'm just going to start. Probably best for most people if you stop and draw out a design or two or three and try to see how it looks at the scale that you're going to be painting it. But if you are somebody who draws a lot, like I am, or used to be, you can just go for it. Or, I mean, you just may want to just go for it anyway. You can always paint over it. Depends on how brave you are. Get some of this paint out of my way here. I did not get nearly as much crap done this weekend as I thought I was going to. And then I actively rebelled when I felt I had worked too hard for it to be a weekend. So I'm going to thin this down about 2 to 1. And see if that's about the right consistency, but I think it is. I want something that I can draw real thin lines with, if necessary. And also something that's thin enough that's easy to paint over, but still gives me enough contrast to effectively underpaint with. So I'm going to sketch in on my design. Let's see, I want my usual brush, my Winsor Newton Series 10 size 1, or sorry, my Da Vinci Maestro Series 10 size 1, not Winsor Newton. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm going to check on Batty here and there just to make sure that he's drying well, but he seems to be drying well. So we're going to set him over there and let him continue to dry, and then we'll sign him. So I kind of had, originally I was just going to do geometrics, but I think I might try to do a bit of a leaf design. Yeah, I'm going to look up stylized leaves and I'm going to adapt it. Better to use somebody else's idea. Stylized leaf. Design. All right. Yeah, it's not a bad start. I can do another lobe there. So I like to look at things and just think about, originally I was kind of thinking something like that. Which I could still do. We could also I could do something I could make it more complex like that. There's all sorts of ideas here, and that's why it's good to just kind of look and see, okay, what do I want to do? I want to do simple leaf, more like this, because that's what she's got on her. Mostly I just need to figure out, I probably needed it to come out a bit more up there. Okay, I know what I'm doing now. also curved over a lot, but that's all right. And I also can get a brown. This is similar to black and brown, but we did some blending. But I can get black and brown. It doesn't end, that's why, Val. I mean, if you're going to be good at drawing, you have to keep it up for months. I mean, you can see how much people, that's why they do Inktober, right? Because if you draw every day, you're going to get better. It doesn't mean you're going to get amazing or even good by the end of 1 month, but you'll see improvement. This is also, I love watching this in webcomics because often a webcomic artist, when they first start out, is really drawing very primitively. But then by 2 years in, they're like so good because they've been drawing every day for hours. But yeah, so I mean, the key with freehand, if you want to like learn to draw, is to keep it stylized. Keep it very simple and very stylized and learn to draw simple shapes well. That's not undoable, but it does take practice. And you can't just throw it at a wall and hope it works. It's something that you should approach methodically. Even if the only method about it is I'm going to draw every day and I'm going to try to draw, choose a shape, any shape. Choose a fleur-de-lis, choose a leaf, choose a, whatever shape you might use on your army or whatever, theme you're thinking of painting, try that. But people in general, I started drawing when I was a very small child. And I was working on it like as earnest as a kid could be. I wanted to be good at drawing, right? But there was definitely a point where I can spin out a dragon in like less than a minute, just like the head and the neck, like breathing fire. I can just draw a little dragon super fast. But when it comes to drawing more complex things, it still takes me a long time, and I usually have to rework forms. I want a little leaf here, and then I want kind of a primitive geometric. And then I want to do another one. And then another one. And then I want to start breaking it up. And I want to do a border of sorts, I think. Let's see. Well, then you weren't, then you need to find a better instructor. Like, it can be, okay, like, you all know that not many painters, like, teach painting like I do necessarily. Like, I tend to break it down, and if you need me to break it down into, like, very small actionable steps for you, I can. Not every instructor can do that. I would say, in fact, that it's a small section of instructors of art and painting that can do that for you. Because a lot of artists and writers are the same way. They do what they do, but they don't stop to think about why they do it or how they do it. And so that's where you get the response of, you just ... And it's not that they're like being like trying to mess you up or they're not trying to help or whatever. It's just that they honestly have never stopped to analyze it. And that's just, it's not one of their strengths. Analysis of their style isn't one of their strengths. They're very good at execution, right? I don't know that. I don't know that course. But yeah, it can be rough because a lot of art instructors, and I ran into several of these in my own art school experience, will just hand you the chalk and say, just do it. You know, and you won't have any way to, like, judge, like, how do I get better at this? What am I doing wrong, right? And they're going to tell you there is no wrong, but you'll be unsatisfied with your progress if you are very, like most many painters, if you're perfectionistic and detail-oriented. You want to know how to get better, and they're just going to tell you to practice, but you're like, well, practice what? Right? So I totally understand, which is why I think that a lot of drawing, I think, is better done self-guided. Like, yes, get a couple books on it, because there are some good books, and see if any of them resonate with you, because it's a relatively cheap investment. And sometimes an art book that you get early and just can't use, like you're just like, I don't get any of this, becomes useful after you have a bit of experience. I accumulate art books for just this reason. So I'm doing just simple geometrics here, and I'm going to put a border around it. Well, but not all teachers break down. Like, that's something also to bring up, though, Michael. Not everybody, you know. Sometimes, and it depends on the level, it depends on the subject. But breaking things down in art, there's so many different ways to do it, right? Like, some teachers are really good at talking about materials and how they act, but they're bad at talking about how you can help train your hand to get a certain effect. And some teachers are the opposite. And some teachers are just like, you just do what you feel, and that's the only way to develop your style, because if I step in and try to help you too much, you won't develop a style, right? That's their fear. Which I think is, you know, misfounded, but that's me and not them, right? So it's like, it isn't just, what makes a good teacher isn't always just the ability to break things down. I guess is what I'm talking about. Because teachers can also instill passion. They can encourage, right? They can be the person who actually tells you, no, you could be good at this, keep at it. That's just as valuable as the ability to break anything down. And it really matters, like, the student is going to matter as far as what you're looking for. And that's why it's such a personalized individual experience to learn art. It's because your temperament, your personality, the way that you work and analyze and try to get better is going to be different from the person across the room from you. And it's going to be, like, every instructor is going to have something different to offer. And so it's never bad, and it might do you, that same course that you don't like now, Val, might do you a lot of good if you sat down and just tried to do some drawing every day for like a year and then went back to it. Because then when they said, just do this, you'd be like, oh yeah, I know how to do that. I learned that back in October. Right? So it's a journey. It's not a try and fail with art. It really is. It's an exploration and a learning about yourself and how you learn and what type of focus you need to get to that point that you're reaching for. It also involves setting realistic goals and understanding that the first apple you draw is going to look like your kindergarten, kid drew it. And that's okay. That's what you are. You're putting yourself back in kindergarten to learn something completely new. And that's why you have to be nice to yourself about it. Right, but all those instructors are teaching from a place of probably, and like, have you picked up a book on very basic drawing? Let's see. Hold on. Like, not just picking up a course from an instructor that you really, really enjoy, but let's see. Do I have anything that's really, 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 really simple? Looking. I have a lot of more advanced stuff because that's just what I'm at, but here. Sometimes I try to pick up a beginner's book to relearn some stuff. And with drawing, often I have to. Let's see here. How do you do it? Yeah, and the other thing to remember about drawing, too, is when people are trying to teach you basic forms, your form's going to look like a lopsided teacup instead of a basket, right? because you don't have, like, the experience in putting the lines down yet. This book's pretty okay. It's a drawing made easy book, getting started. It talks about using line, shape, and form. That's pretty good, actually. It's pretty simple, but it gets complex. It gets more complex. It has steps. It definitely has steps. I like that she talks about properties of pencils and shading techniques. But everything starts with a line. And in order for you to, like, create something that looks like it looks representative of a form, you're going to have to make a lot of lines that don't work. But yeah, the thing is about a lot of courses, they're assuming, courses especially by famous people or by people who are marketing themselves as, like, Disney artists or, you know, whatever, those people are not, they're assuming, I think, in a lot of ways, that their students are more advanced. Or at least have, like, a basic fundamentals, like, amount of skill. So I would say be wary if courses don't work for you. One, it could be the instructor just isn't, like, on your vibe, and two, it could just be that the course is aiming at someone that isn't just picking up a pencil for the first time. Because teaching a course to somebody who's just picking up a pencil for the first time is harder. Like, that's why you guys should bless all the miniature painting instructors who are teaching beginner stuff when they do it well. Because it's much harder to teach a good beginner course, in my opinion. You apply them. I don't know those guys either. I mean, the most easy, like, thing is just to copy, right? Try to copy what they do. But yeah, I don't have any of those books, so I don't know. Hold on, now I'm gonna look. Drawing for Dummies. Of course there's a Drawing for Dummies. There's a book called Drawing for the Absolute Beginner. Although they're talking mostly about a realistic style, so it depends on if you want to do that or not. If you're trying to draw human form, then I think manga and comic book art is actually a great place to start. Oh, that's old, Turgeon. Yeah, that's a long time ago. I wonder if those are still available anywhere. Oh, Mark Kistler. Now I'm gonna look up that book. You can draw in 30 days, huh? Okay, so how to apply it? You've got to start making the line, right? Like, you just got to practice the shape of the line. And you got to practice it a lot. You have to fill pages in sketchbooks with it. Yeah, this seems like it's pretty... Well, okay, the perspective stuff is hard, right? Looking at the perspective stuff in there. I wouldn't start with perspective. Yeah, that's three-dimensional. So he's got line drawings, but yeah, and he's specifically talking about depth. So if that didn't work for you because the 3D thing is too hard, because honestly for me it was in the beginning. Yeah, so you then, in that case, pick up, let's see, is this the beginning one? This one's a little bit more. There's a little bit more. The sculptors use these books, and I love them. And you could probably learn a lot just by copying. Honestly, if you copy Izzy's art, but something else too is the Cutting Edge Comics book, and Jason Weeby turned me onto these. So this is drawing Cutting Edge Comics, but they also have Cutting Edge Anatomy and a bunch of other stuff, and there's a bunch of manga books also. So it depends on what you're into. But I mean, this breaks down the human form, and like Izzy's work, it's very flat. They're not. They do talk about perspective, but you know what I'm talking about there. I have Cutting Edge Anatomy and Cutting Edge Comics in that series, but if you have success with just linear drawing, then I would pick up a manga or one of these comic books, or some other somebody else who works in comics. Like I have where is it? Frank Cho's book. Nope. Dang it. There's another good one from comic artists. But if you can do the line work, if the line work works for you, then I would pick up books by people who do comic book work. Here. This is a great book. Is very focused. Oh, and the anatomy and action, character design stuff, that's all interesting. Yeah, this is cool too, but again, it's basic anatomy and stuff. Basic anatomy of the head. Yeah, so this is Drawing Beautiful Women with Frank Cho. He does, I love his women, actually. He does great stuff. He does a lot of naked ones, but, I mean, his anatomy is spot on, and he talks about, like, everything from line drawing to more elaborate stuff. But the book does get advanced, but if you're you can learn a lot from copying, like, other artists, is kind of what I'm getting to here. And if Izzy's work is something that you've had the ability to copy small parts of with success, then I would say that that's your route, right? What, the Frank Cho one? It's amazing. I love it. But it is more advanced, so... Like, let me see if I can find one that's actually friendly. And he is pretty funny. But, like, he's going to break down, he's going to do the basics for you. He's going to break down, like, faces, right? Very simple. And he does a lot of, like, line drawing. So, like, you could try to copy parts of that. Oh, Cutting Edge? Yeah. Oh, those are great books. Like, the sculptors use those books. The Reaper sculptors use them. Yeah, again, they're going to go anywhere from the very basics on out, but especially just working on drawing the basic physical forms, like, one of the most useful is, honestly, I like the anatomy book maybe a little bit better, but Cutting Edge Comics works too. The Cutting Edge Comics one is just more general. But, like, the great thing about comic books, if you're trying to, like, learn anatomy, is that they're going to, like, break things down for you, right? They're going to give you really simple shapes so that you can see the structure. But they're also going to give you over-muscled shapes so that you can start to learn musculature, right? It's like... Boom. So, like, it's nice, it's linear, it's simple, it doesn't bother teaching you perspective, although they do talk about perspective here, because comic books. But it sets up, and the thing about comics, too, is they tend to have very archetypical forms, right? You're learning quite a classical, like, face structure and stuff, although they do vary, and they do set up some different stuff. I like the Cutting Edge Anatomy book a little bit better myself. But then here, the other thing cool about here is they're going to give you like different examples of different styles of art, right? So we've got the very, very almost manga, and then you've got more realistic eyes and things, right? So I'd say I like both the cutting edge comics books and the cutting edge anatomy book, both useful. But yeah, I would say they were endorsed. It was Bobby Jackson and Jason Wiebe who brought those to Reaper Artist Conference, and I decided to buy them after I paged through them. I want to peek this down here. But yeah, so it's just a matter of finding the references that you need at the right time. I mean, as an artist, I'm still always buying art books. Like, every art book has something for me that I can draw from, pull from. All right, let's get down to these little mosaic bits over here. Oh. So we're just sketching in a band. That's a little wide, that's a little narrow, and I went up too far on the other side, so I can bring it down. Yeah, that's okay. Because she's got this arm raised, so this hood is going to be higher. But you can. I mean, that's the thing. You use a lot of can'ts, Val. But the fact is that you can, but it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. Can you just whip it out when you need it? No. It's something with drawing, it's something you make a commitment to. Just like with painting. And that's why I do more painting than drawing now, is like I don't have a lot of time for drawing right now. I'm putting my commitment in other directions. But, I mean, banners, you say just stuff like banners, but banners are one of the most complicated things you can do. Depending. I mean, you can do very simple ones, but... Like, the simplest freehand is honestly stuff like I'm doing right now. A simple stylized design that nonetheless looks impressive once you finish it. But all you're doing is, like, geometric shapes or simple shapes that are stylized. The stylized shape breaks down a form. And that's the beautiful thing about stylization. Is that you don't need reality. You're just doing line work. And a lot of banner work that I do that I've done in the past is also stylized. I can do much better banners now. Mm-hmm. Freehand for the non-artist. Yeah. That's a great class. Right. Yep. Yeah, it really is just kind of getting started. And when you're copying a form from something, it makes it easier. But I think the thing people don't get is that to get really good at it, you've got to practice it just like any art. It has to become a thing for you. Maybe it's just a, like, you know, a couple hours on Saturday thing, but... And the more time you put into it, and the more effort you put in, the faster you progress in general. Not always, but most of the time. At least in the beginning. I mean, Rhonda is a great example. She started brushing up on her 2D art a few years ago. And has made leaps and bounds in it. When she works on it regularly, she sees a lot of progress. And she's able to take what she learns out of the 2D classes that she takes and apply a lot of it to miniatures. But you can't expect to be great out the gate. Like, you can expect to get a passable thing. Like with Greg Zuniga's class, he breaks it down nice and simple. Everybody's doing the same project. You know, he knows that it's doable because he's you know, people have done it, so he knows that it's something that people can reach for. And it teaches you the skill set to break things down so you can do it. Like, drawing in the beginning for doing banners or for anything like this is really just breaking down a shape you see so that you can transfer it onto the surface you're working on. And it's not the same as necessarily just going out and just doing a drawing, like freehand drawing with, like, from nature. Then it gets a little bit harder, right? And then there's a lot of the negative talk, right? Where you go into it believing you're terrible at it, and that, without you even knowing, that is giving you a handicap. A belief in your head that you are terrible at this thing, or that you just can't understand it, that's just setting you up to make it even harder for you. You've got to allow some room in there to believe that you are not, in fact, terrible, and that you can, in fact, understand it if you just take your time. So what I'll be doing with these is I want to create kind of a texture inside each one, each little panel. I want the border to be gold, so I'll widen the border a bit so that we can make sure to have that color effect. But then inside of each of these, I want the panel to be textured in a different way, and I want that to be colored. So I'm going to be doing a lot of glazing. The reason that I do these sketches with really thin white paint is because it's super easy to paint over it with the black and brown if I mess up, which inevitably I will. But as I get a shape set that I like, I'm just taking the white and coming back and making it heavier. I'm reinforcing it. Hello, Daffodor. So essentially I'm sketching over here. And now that I have shapes I like, that more or less work, I'm going to fill those in a little bit more solidly. And any sketchy lines that remain, I'll just clean up. But yeah, all true learning starts with believing that there's a chance that you can do this. You have to at least give yourself a chance. And that's why, as you guys were talking earlier, that's why having a positive instructor is so valuable. An instructor that makes you believe, and this is why Bob Ross is still powerful after all these years, drugged up as he may have been. Because he made you believe you could do it. And that's half the battle right there. The true battle is inside your head. As always in life. Once you open the door that says, you know what, if I worked at this, I could be good at this. I believe I can do this. At least I'm going to try it and see what happens. And you just lay yourself open and you don't give yourself the negative talk. And then you manage it. And then you're like, oh, And then that should open a door in your head that says, well, wait a minute, if I did this with just this little amount of time, if I really want to be good at this, I can. And then you can pick it up or not as you wish. But you need to like get to the point where you acknowledge that I can be good at this if I put the time in. And then you assess whether you're willing to put that time in. But just saying, this is too hard for me, or I just don't get this, or I'm bad at it, that doesn't give you that room. And so you immediately shut the door on it in your head. And that's where you're still, years down the line going, oh, I'm bad at that. And maybe you haven't tried it for 20 years, which is, that's a very long time, right? But you still believe you're bad at it because of that one time you tried it. Or maybe even the 7 times you tried it. And not everybody has the knack to push through. And positivity is interesting. Like, as a strength, it's kind of put it in perspective for me. Coach Terry, who has a very high positivity, and it's one of the reasons I love him and learn from him. But he's like, positivity is not always being happy-go-lucky. Positivity is the ability to have something go wrong, bad, or fail at something, and then go, you know what? I'm going to give it another try anyway. This probably was just, it was just one try. I could do it. I could do better. Things will get better. This will pass, right? That's positivity. The person that's just like, la, 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 that's not positivity. Positivity kicks in when things are hard and you are able to use it to flip your mindset to a positive mindset, a growth mindset, whereas then you can move forward, right? That's real positivity, guys. I mean, somewhat, Turgeon. I don't like some of those sayings are just very neat, but they also can be a little bit deceptive. Like, because there is such a thing as, you gave it a good shot, and either because you decided you didn't want to put the time into it, or it just wasn't for you, you should fail out of it. Like, I forget the book, but there's a great book about this. And Seth Godin talks about it a lot. But he's like, some people are real quitters, and they progress farther and faster because they are. And the philosophy behind that is, we try a thing, we see the thing isn't really for us, we're not really getting the vibe from it that we really wanted from it, and some people will keep at it because of sunk cost fallacy, and some people will keep at it just because they're stubborn, and they're like, well, maybe tomorrow I'll find the part of it that I really like. But some people will look at it, give it an honest assessment, and quit. And in doing so, they have actually saved themselves a lot of time working on something that wasn't the thing for them, right? So there's that too. And that's why I say, once you get in there and acknowledge that with time, you could probably improve at this, that you are not bad at it, right? You are not born bad at art. You just don't have any experience in it. So once you get that open mindset, that's the time to look at it and say, well, okay, but is this really what I want to do? Is this really what I want to put my time toward? We have finite lives, right? So we have to make those choices. So sometimes I don't see the fail until you quit thing as a very good philosophy for me, because sometimes quitting stuff is the best thing I've ever done. I opted out of 2D art to become a better miniature painter. And this is how far I've come, right? And I was good at 2D art. I could have pushed further with 2D art, but mini painting was more where it was at for me. And so that's where I went, right? So it's important to keep those thoughts in mind, right? There's two things there. One, you've got to give it an honest chance. But then once you give it an honest chance, even if you're really good at it, even if you discover a hidden talent you never knew you had, doesn't mean you have to follow through with it. There's no obligation there. There should only be the what is right for me, right? Because when we're doing these things, when we're exploring art and creative pursuits and stuff like that, we're doing it, hopefully for the reason that we enjoy it, that it fulfills some part of us, that it makes us really happier with the world, right, in general. You know, some of us are going to be doing it because we want to make an impact. We want to get really good at a thing that we enjoy, right? But we all need to ask ourselves those questions because a lot of people get trapped in that stuff. Yes, you've totally made me go off spiraling into the great beyond, Turgeon. Sorry. Because I guess it's because the reason I trigger on those things so often, guys, when you bring up like a phrase or a saying, is I feel like they're very neat, but they can be very deceptive as well. Because there's, you know, there's that saying is tied to the one, you know, like be like a shark, never stop moving. You know, a shark stops moving and it dies, right? Quote unquote. Old wives' tale, but nonetheless. And in some ways that's right. You've got to keep moving, you've got to keep growing, right? Once you've chosen the thing that you're committed to. But I also don't like the thought that quitting entails failure, because I feel like it's a thing. Sometimes you have to quit. And I feel like quitting has such a negative connotation in our society, and I feel like that's really unfair. Because, I mean, as somebody who's quit numerous things to make room for writing in my life. Oh yeah, not be here tomorrow or Friday. Okay, John will be taking care of the stream. So if it doesn't start, I will message John. Thanks, Quindy. Thanks for the reminder. Good luck. I assume it's more doctor stuff. But yeah, so yeah, whenever anybody brings up failure in the chat, I'm gonna bring stuff like this up, because it's like, fail is a really complicated word for a lot of us. It shuts a lot of us down. It keeps us from moving forward, right? But sometimes, like, quitting doesn't deserve to be lumped in with failing. Like, I quit my dog club obligations, almost all of them. And that was something I had committed to for over a decade. And there were a lot of people who were mad at me for stepping back, who were really kind of like resentful about it. But now I feel better than I ever have before. Like, it was so necessary, and I've recovered from burnout. And now I'm ready to give some more time to those people, right? So, yeah, that's how I feel. Just thoughts. Lots of thoughts. Oh, okay. Oh, nice, John. Yeah, that's great. Hey, John. Actually, I'll remind both you and Quindy, I think we're coming up on our 1000th episode soon. So I was going to ask you guys if you could figure that out, because I'd like to do some giveaways. Because 1000 is big. So here, guys, I'm just going back and I like the shapes I have here, so I'm going back and accentuating them. I'm making the lines a little heavier. What I want to do is make a heavy line on the outside of each of these shapes, and then have thinner lines on the inside when I decide to do my patterns. We'll see how this works. I was going to say 215 to 220 years would be impressive. Then we'd know you're a vampire, Turgeon, at that point. That would explain, you know, how you have all that time to read. Is an elf. I think vampire, you think elf. Which would you rather be, Turgeon? The tools that are good to use are the tools that work for you. No more, no less. Does that mean you have to try a bunch? Yes. This is why every artist I know has a crap ton of art supplies. A metric crap ton. Many of which they don't use. Because they got them to try them out, and they didn't become part of their process, and now they are just lying in the closet gathering dust. This is why we all get a ton of paint lines, and we end up like not touching 90% of the paint. Because we learn what works for us with trial and error. Your middle name is Methuselah. Huh? Oh, it wasn't meant to be. I mean, I'm the one with I can't even tell you how many art supplies I have stuck in that closet. Oh my god! And I was thinking of my mom actually when I said it, because she and Dad just moved out of the house we grew up in, and like she downsized her art collection so much. Like she pretty much gave art supplies to everybody like she knew that was younger that like, you know, wanted art supplies, because she had no room going into their new condo. She had to downsize. And even then, she still has a closet full. You'd go for Elf. You'd rather not burn to a crisp when watching sunsets. That's fair. But yeah, and look at me. I mean, I've got all the chimeras, almost all. I've got a bunch of the scale colors that I never touch. I touch like 2 tubes of scale color artist. 2. How many do I have currently wasting away in my other room? Like, I got all those cuttlefish colors, and you know what I'm going to end up doing? Breaking them down so that I only have the base stuff and putting all the other stuff out of sight, out of mind in my closet. Because the only colors I'm interested in using from that line are bases. Oh, that was a joke. Okay. Yes. Yeah, well, right. So you've at least been trying stuff. But that's good, because you can learn from trying. Yeah, I never mean to get personal on here. Most of the time when I'm saying this stuff, it's because I've run into this like mindset in the past, or this type of thing in the past, and I have it in my own experience. So just to like clarify, even though it was a joke, I'm never targeting any of you guys, except calling Turgid Methuselah. I guess we've gotten a little bit targeted there. But yeah. Like, when I bring this stuff up, when I, like, go off on a spinning, like, psychological tangent because somebody says something in chat, it's just because in the past I've had an experience with that particular thing or mindset, and I've learned from it, right? And nothing's ever black or white, and nothing's ever wrong or right, and that's the problem with life. We all would like to just quantify things in nice little boxes of right and wrong, and good for us and bad for us. But the Snickers bar I ate this morning was really good for my stress level, even if it wasn't good for my waistline. So I'm afraid that the Snickers bar lives firmly in shades of gray. This is my fault for opening the Halloween candy and putting it in the Halloween bowl. David, in fact, was like, "Can you please remove the Halloween candy from the counter?" Because it was aggroing him. He's like, "It's looking at me." Yeah, Richard, but then I won't have it if I need it. Right? What if I need that color? What if someday I remember that I have this color and I need it? And of course, you know that's happened 1 out of 500 times, but because it actually does like apply that 1 out of 500 times, I don't get rid of it. Although I am about to do a purge, so. And I remember I've got minis to get rid of too. I've just held off because I had too much going on this summer. Too much travel to sort out minis. I have my first lot put aside though, so we'll start doing that soon. But with paint, sometimes, honestly, there have been times where I've been like, "Oh crap, I need this Reaper color for a PDF," or "Oh damn, it would be good to have these colors for a PDF," and then I'm like, "Wait, I have those colors." So yeah, unfortunately, it happens just often enough. I forget there's a mental thing, actually. There's an actual name for that, where like you have a method or a modus operandi that you do as a human, and it almost never works. But when it does work, it reinforces the thought in your head that it works, and you start believing that it works all out of proportion to how often it actually does. I discovered this in a book about poker and risk. It's a book about how humans think about risk. And the author brings up that particular thing because poker players will be like, well, I always do this unconventional strategy and it works. And actually, if they look at how much it works, they would find it only works 10% of the time, but that's frequently enough that they feel validated, and so they believe it works much more than that. Oops, sorry. Yeah, mechanical pencils are cool. Although there's something, I don't know, I go back and forth. Like, sometimes I feel like mechanical pencil is much better for sketching for me, but I also really like the feel of different types of leads. So, and of traditionally sharpening a pencil. So, I go back and forth on that. Yes, yeah, except this book also talks about that, Michael. Those are two different things in it, but it also talks about that, the end sight bias. The fact that people tend to attribute good results to something they did and bad results to someone else or external circumstances. This is a human thing. Yeah, it's getting there. Like, I want that leaf in the middle, and then I want to do another version of that coming down here. So, but yeah, so it gives us something, because the back is a little bland otherwise, there's a lot, because it was, before there would be the wings, right? But now we don't have the wings since we puttied over them. So I feel like we need a little bit of design. So I'll be, essentially, once I've got this nailed, then we'll do another one down here. So yeah. And hey, we're done with stream. Look at that. I can go and rest my hip. Yay! Oh, Papa. Just because I said yay doesn't mean there's anyone else here. Papa! Papa! Yay! Hi! Yeah, see, the yay was for you. Yay for Kiki. Yay! Yay! There you go. Yeah, yay! Is that better? Is that better? You thought I was talking to somebody who was right here. Yeah, I know, because I say that to Dad all the time, and you thought it was a human. Someone invading the house, but it wasn't. It was just a jubilant mommy. Good girl. You want to get up? You can. Oh, guys, it's Kiki. Quick, look. Good girl. Good girl. Your back is better. Good girl. Mwah. So good. What a good dog. Good girl. It's not, Kuro, but it's your decision whether you want to work with that part of yourself or not. Hey, cool pencils are awesome, no matter which way you slice it. I'll never look down at anybody for collecting a bunch of awesome pencils, because, you know, been there. Still have a bunch stashed in my closet. And I won't even go into the colored pencil collection. Don't even get me into the $800 of colored pencils I own that I don't use most years. Yes. Yeah, the Kiki came up just for a little bit, so her back is feeling better, obviously. I still am not playing Frisbee with her. She's going to have to wait another week, I think, for that. But all right, well, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Tomorrow we'll be back. We'll probably be working on the same thing unless I really feel like working on leather, but I kind of feel like working on freehand. Oh, Rhonda should be on this afternoon, huh? Good, yay! You haven't bought any mini for 4 days, oh my god. You feel faint. Alright, you guys, thanks so much. Yes, Crowley. Have a good meeting/work day, whatever. And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. And remember, we won't see Quindy. So, Quindy, good luck. We'll see you Wednesday. And thanks, John, for handling everything for tomorrow. And I will see you all then, all right? Have a good one, everybody. Kiki wants her walk. She wants it really bad. She really wants it. Yes, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. You too, Roger. And have a good one. All right, bye.